Have you ever sat quietly and asked yourself, why does life sometimes align in such mysterious ways? There are moments that leave us in awe. You think of an old friend, and just moments later, the phone rings. It's them calling, as if an invisible thread is connecting your minds. There are times when you're overwhelmed with worry, unsure how to solve a complicated problem. You've tried everything, but nothing works. Then suddenly, when you finally let go and stop resisting, everything begins to ease. A solution appears, not from effort or control, but from stillness and acceptance. These moments make us wonder, are they merely coincidences or signs of a deeper order quietly moving beneath the surface of life? Is there an unseen energy flowing alongside us, gently orchestrating events? Some call it coincidence, others call it fate. But if we observe with an open and still mind, we begin to see that these occurrences are far from random. They reflect a natural principle where every event is interconnected, where each thought, word, and action leaves a trace, like ripples spreading across a vast lake. The universe is not a collection of disconnected events, but a web of intertwined causes and conditions. When you think of someone, perhaps at a subtle level, your energy reaches out to them, creating a resonance that leads to their appearance. When you let go of a worry, it may be that this very act of release creates the space for clarity to arise. This is not something magical, but a natural expression of the deep relationship between mind and world. As the Buddha taught, all phenomena arise through conditions. Nothing exists independently. Everything is interdependent. What we call strange coincidences are simply the fruition of causes and conditions that have quietly ripened in the right place at the right time. When we see this clearly, we no longer regard such moments as mysterious or accidental. Instead, we see them as reminders that we are never separate from the wondrous flow of life. Just like a drop of water cannot leave the ocean, we cannot stand apart from the web of interbeing that is always moving, always changing. Each thought, each word, each action, no matter how small, shapes reality. Sometimes all it takes is a shift in the heart, and the entire world appears differently. Reality is not a fixed wall, but a mirror reflecting the state of our mind. When your heart is at peace, the world softens. When your mind is closed, reality feels suffocating. So these strange alignments aren't meant to confuse or mystify us. They are invitations to pause and realize that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. That greater flow doesn't need us to control it. It only asks that we relax and open. When we stop grasping or forcing, we become lighter. And in that lightness, the universe responds with grace. Life begins to unfold at the right time, in the right place, not because we've become smarter or stronger, but because we're now in harmony with the natural rhythm of things. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means releasing our selfish expectations and the demand that things must go our way. When the heart is spacious, everything can enter. When judgment falls away, all things can reveal themselves. This is the state of alignment with the greater movement of life. And perhaps in that state, you'll no longer find coincidences strange. In the modern world, quantum physics is not only a specialized science, but also opens the door to profound insights into the nature of reality. The original video evokes a special perspective that when we place our trust in quantum energy at a deep level, beyond the control of the intellect and the limits of logical thinking, life begins to unfold in miraculous ways. Unexpected events arise, rare coincidences become familiar, and reality seems to respond to the subtle vibrations within us. Strangely enough, this aligns closely with the Buddhist teachings on letting go. In Buddhism, letting go does not mean giving up or becoming passive. It means releasing attachment and stopping the demand for life to go our way. When we stop controlling and forcing reality to match personal desires, we create space to receive life as it is. And in that openness, the flow of causes and conditions can move naturally, bringing us to the right place at the right time without interference from the ego. Quantum physics shows that particles can exist in multiple states at once, and only when observed do they choose a state to appear. This points to a profound truth. Consciousness is a key factor in shaping reality. Similarly, in Buddhist teachings, reality does not exist independently from the mind. The world we see is not a fixed entity, but a reflection of consciousness. When the mind is full of worry, resistance, and clinging, we create a tense, chaotic reality. When the mind is spacious, open, and accepting, reality becomes gentle, mysterious, and full of possibilities. Both perspectives, whether from modern science or ancient wisdom, lead to a shared truth. When we stop trying to control the flow of life, that very flow begins to carry us where we need to go. You don't need to know what will happen next. You don't need to grasp every variable. You just need to maintain a steady, mindful, and open heart. In this state, you are no longer swept away by anxiety and craving. Instead, you live with a deep trust that life knows what is needed better than you do. This does not mean inaction. On the contrary, you still act, still live fully, but your actions arise not from fear or control, but from clarity and harmony with conditions. You no longer struggle to produce outcomes. You trust that when you plant wholesome seeds, the fruits will come when conditions are right. Just like planting a seed in the soil, you don't need to pull the sprout out. You simply nourish the soil, provide water, light, and wait. Time and nature do the rest. In the quantum world, all possibilities are present. In the world of causes and conditions, any result can arise if the conditions are ripe. When you trust in this energy, you no longer need to micromanage every detail. You learn to live with trust, and from that, you become lighter and freer. This letting go does not make you weak. It makes you more grounded than ever, because you are no longer bound by immediate outcomes or trapped by personal desires. You become a companion of reality, not a resistor of it. And strangely enough, it is when you stop demanding that beautiful things begin to appear. doors open. The people you need arrive. The answers you seek reveal themselves, not through forced effort, but through stillness and deep trust. The Buddha once taught, letting go is not losing, but opening. Just as in quantum physics, when we stop observing through the narrow lens of ego, reality can unfold with countless wondrous possibilities. Most of us believe we have faith. We tell ourselves, I trust that everything will be okay, or I believe in karma, in the universe, in divine order. But if we look closely, we often find a trace of worry hidden behind those words. We quietly prepare a backup plan. We hold on to a sliver of doubt, as if we don't fully believe that everything will unfold as it should. These subtle fluctuations act like static noise in the stream of life. Just like a signal interrupted by interference, preventing the message from arriving clearly, our mind, when clouded with fear and calculation, cannot transmit energy in its purest form. The flow of insight, of peace, cannot move through the dust of doubt. True faith is not an idea. It's not an emotional affirmation. It is a state of being. It does not require proof, nor does it need to be repeated in words. It is simply a complete release, a willingness to let life unfold in its own way. True faith comes with relaxation, without striving, without calculation, without control. When the mind is truly at ease, free from fear or hope, life energy begins to move naturally. Invisible wisdom, whether you call it intuition, dependent origination, or inner guidance, can then arise. And the beauty is this: when doubt no longer clouds our hearts, the signs we need begin to appear. The right words come, the right person arrives, the right door opens. We don't need to understand how the universe works to trust it, just like we don't need to understand how our lungs function to breathe. Faith doesn't come from analysis. It comes from full presence, from ceasing the internal struggle and allowing life to flow through us naturally. When you truly trust, you no longer need guarantees. You don't need everything to go your way. You just know that whatever happens, you'll be okay. And that okayness doesn't come from perfection, but from a steady inner state, undisturbed by outcomes. In contrast, faith mixed with doubt keeps us always on guard. We live, but don't fully live. We love, but withhold a part of ourselves. We walk, but keep looking back. Life in such a state becomes heavy, unnatural, and exhausting. The Buddha never asked us to believe blindly. He taught us to observe, to experience, and from that, let inner trust arise. But once that trust emerges, we must nourish it with steadiness. Like a delicate seedling that needs good soil and sunlight, faith requires stability and focus to grow into wisdom. Faith does not exclude caution, but caution is not the same as doubt. One walks with clarity, the other walks with a clenched heart. One is rooted in mindfulness, the other in fear. They are vastly different, and the energy they produce is vastly different. When you can let go of the tug-of-war between trust and doubt, between hope and fear, you begin to feel a lightness enter your steps. You no longer need to wrestle with life. You simply live, breathe, and let everything unfold with the trust that you are always supported. Only when the mind is fully at ease, free of calculation, can invisible wisdom flow unhindered. And in that flow, you no longer feel lost in life. You feel deeply connected, where everything that happens has its place, and you are embraced by a sacred current, where faith needs no promises, only full presence in the now.
When someone begins to live with deep trust, not theoretical belief, but a wholehearted openness to the flow of the universe, they start to notice strange things happening. Some call it quantum phenomena. Some call it synchronicity. Others simply say, "What a coincidence." But for those who've entered the depths of mindfulness, these are not random events. They are the natural outcome of the cooperation between mind and reality, between thought and manifestation. When you no longer live by force or control, when you stop pushing life to follow personal plans, you begin to see the world operate like a hidden but flawless mechanism. The right things arrive at the right time. The people you need just appear. The doors that matter open effortlessly. Synchronicity, in modern scientific terms, refers to the meaningful coincidence of seemingly unrelated events. In reality, someone living with quantum trust experiences these moments frequently. Time feels slower, intuition sharpens, health shifts without clear reason, and outer events mysteriously align with inner feelings. These changes don't arise from doing more, but from letting go more. The lighter the mind becomes, the less resistance it carries, the more clearly life's flow reveals itself. In Buddhism, this is not seen as mystical. It's simply the convergence of conditions. When the causes and conditions are ripe, the result naturally manifests. No need to beg, no need to force, no need to chant for magic to happen. All that's needed is a mind that is open, spacious, and free of obstruction. The universe knows what to do. Those who have never experienced this may find it hard to believe. They are used to control, planning, measuring everything with logic. But life is not only logic. There are subtler waves at play where inner vibrations can influence external outcomes. When the mind is calm, reality reflects that calm. When the mind is agitated, the world appears chaotic. It's not that the world has changed, but that we have, and our perception of the world shifts accordingly. So when synchronicity appears, it's a gentle sign. You're on the right path. There's nothing more to force, no need to control. Simply continue to rest your mind in the present, open to what comes and goes. Dependent origination cannot be calculated by intellect. It is a sacred unfolding of the Dharma. It's like planting a seed. You don't sit and force it to grow. You simply create the right conditions. Good soil, water, sunlight. When the causes are complete, the sprout will emerge. In life, what needs to come will come. What needs to go will go. The more impatient and demanding the mind, the more the energy becomes entangled. The more relaxed and open the mind, the clearer the universe flows. You don't have to understand everything to live in harmony with it. You just need to trust its unfolding and keep your heart free from doubt and fear. Synchronicity is not a miracle. It's a natural expression of a mind resonating with reality at the right frequency. When you live rightly, speak clearly, think truthfully, and let go wisely, life begins to respond to you clearly. No need to push, no need to chase. Buddhism calls this the ripening of causes and conditions.
It is the manifestation that arises from the maturing of many elements at once, both inner and outer. In this state, you're no longer the master of your life, but a co-creator with life itself. You no longer resist the current, you merge with it in humility and ease. When you let go, the flow begins. When you trust, what's needed arrives. When your mind is empty, truth reveals itself. And then you'll stop searching for miracles out there, because you'll realize you, in harmony with dependent origination, are the miracle itself. Deep trust in the quantum flow of life is not an invitation to sit still and wait for miracles to happen. It is not passivity, nor is it a resignation to fate wrapped in despair. On the contrary, it is an active collaboration, mindful and awake, with the invisible intelligence that moves through every moment of reality. Just like the practice of mindfulness in Buddhism, we continue to act, but our actions arise not from craving, fear, or the urge to control outcomes. Mindfulness doesn't mean withdrawing from life. It is full presence, the ability to deeply listen, to clearly see what is happening, and to respond wisely. When we live in mindfulness, each step, each word, each choice emerges from clarity and stability, not from instinct or unconscious habits. Quantum trust works in the same way. We are not passive. We do not abandon responsibility, but we act with an open heart, without attachment, without urgency, without forcing. This collaboration requires a profound quality, trust in what we cannot see with the eyes. While the ego wants to grasp, control, and get immediate results, collaborating with invisible wisdom asks us to step back, not to retreat, but to listen, not to abandon our path, but to allow a deeper intelligence to move through us. Like a musician in an orchestra, we don't try to outplay everyone else. We listen to the whole, feel the rhythm, and contribute our part harmoniously. Living with quantum trust is much the same. We don't force reality to follow our will. We listen and then respond with the right action. A mindful person knows everything is conditioned. Therefore, their actions don't stem from pushing or clinging. They work, they serve, but without the pressure to control the result. That gentleness creates the conditions for causes and conditions to converge, allowing results to emerge naturally and fully. Many people misunderstand and think that if they trust the universe, they don't need to do anything, that they can just meditate, let go, and wait for good things to come. But that is not trust, it is avoidance in disguise. True trust is always paired with action, but action that is free from entanglement. You don't demand success. You don't fear failure. You simply do your part with sincerity and awareness. The rest, leave it to the universe. The Buddha never taught us to sit and wait for enlightenment to fall from the sky. He spoke of the Noble Eightfold Path, where each step is an intentional, mindful choice. He taught that karma always unfolds, and it is right action that creates a right path. But to act rightly, the mind must be clear. And to have a clear mind, we must release personal cravings, future projections, and past obsessions. Collaborating with invisible wisdom is not about seeking divine favors. It's about harmonizing with the natural laws of Dharma. We live in accordance with truth, not against it. We know when to plant, when to wait, when to pause, not because we are clever, but because we have learned to listen. In fact, when we act with serenity and release, we become stronger, not weaker, because we are no longer dependent on outcomes to define our worth. Success does not inflate us. Failure does not break us. We simply continue, aligned with the flow of causes and conditions, playing our part in the greater rhythm. And strangely enough, when you no longer desperately cling to something, what you need begins to appear, gently, naturally, not because you did nothing, but because you did your part well and then allowed wisdom to carry the rest. So, living with quantum trust is not fantasy. It is a deeply practical way of living, a blend of conscious action and deep trust. Not passive waiting, but not grasping either. Not striving, but not giving up. Just a steady step between heaven and earth, knowing what you're doing, why you're doing it, and being ready to receive what follows without clinging or complaint. That is the true strength of one who lives mindfully and collaborates with the sacred unfolding of dependent origination.
When the mind opens in trust, something miraculous begins to happen. Brilliant ideas, subtle solutions, and unexpected directions start to arise, not through analysis or logic, but as if they are transmitted directly. They come like a cool breeze, like a flash of lightning in the dark. Not from figuring out, but as if sent to us. In that state, we no longer act from a calculating mind, but from a deeper source, the source of pure intuition. That intuition is not impulsive emotion, nor vague hunches. It is a knowing born from stillness, a clear seeing that does not rely on reasoning. In Buddhist teachings, this is called prajna wisdom, a kind of knowing that transcends duality, concepts, and mental frameworks. Prajna does not debate right or wrong, does not measure gain or loss. It simply sees reality as it is. We are used to living in the realm of logic, where everything requires reasons, evidence, plans, and predictions. Logical thinking has helped humanity advance in science and technology, but it has also distanced us from our quiet inner nature. When facing life's complexities, the intellect often traps us in overthinking and worry. Meanwhile, intuition offers a direct, simple, and natural path. Prajna wisdom does not reject logic, but it is not confined by it. It operates on a deeper level, where there is no ego, no judgment, where the mind becomes transparent like a still lake. In that silence, truth reveals itself without effort. Just like the sun does not need to be pointed out to be seen, truth is the same. When the clouds dissolve, the sun appears. When delusions fall away, wisdom illuminates. And it is trust, not in a divine figure, but in the sacred flow of causes and conditions that dissolves the clouds. We are conditioned to be in control, to know everything, to understand fully before acting. But sometimes real clarity only comes when we dare to let go. When we stop straining to grasp, to understand, to control. That is when true knowing finds space to arise.
Someone with deep intuition is not guessing. They are listening to silence. They act with lightness, not pulled by the noise of overthinking and doubt. Like a stream of water that does not argue, yet always finds its way. Prajna is knowing that is not conditioned by memory or experience. It is not limited to what we've learned. That's why many are surprised that in the midst of crisis or confusion, the answer suddenly appears from an unexpected place. A flash of inspiration, a clear image, a strong inner sense. And when we trust and follow it, everything begins to align. It's not luck, it's presence. It's the deepest part of us being awakened, where mind and life are one. In Zen tradition, some masters could open truth in others with a single phrase, a glance, a falling flower. No long lectures, no arguments, because truth does not come through reasoning. It comes when the mind is ready to see, and the mind is ready only when it's no longer ruled by doubt or fear. Trust opens the door. Silence dissolves the fog. And from there, wisdom shines, not through thinking, not through knowing, but simply through seeing, clearly, gently, and at the perfect moment. When we live with that kind of wisdom, we no longer get trapped in right and wrong. We no longer wander in the maze of logic. We live simply, clearly, and act with a clarity that needs no reason. We know when to speak and when to stay silent. We know what to do without inner conflict. This wisdom beyond intellect is not reserved for special people. It exists within us all, simply waiting to be opened. And it begins with something that seems small, a gentle trust, a quiet breath, and a mind no longer pulled by the noise of the outside world. Quantum trust, when seen deeply, is not about believing that something good will happen in the future. It is not a forward-looking hope, nor a comforting thought to reassure ourselves that everything will be okay. True trust is deeply tied to presence, a full return to the here and now, free from the pull of the past or the worry of the future. When you stop trying to control what will happen, when you let go of the need to know outcomes in advance, your mind begins to return to this very moment. And in that moment, a sacred door opens. The breath, the simplest of things, becomes an anchor for your return. Each inhalation is a new life. Each exhalation, a chance to let go. And when you are truly present with each breath, you see that nothing is lacking in this moment. There's nowhere to go, nothing to wait for, nothing to add or remove. The mind tends to project itself into the future, where it imagines happiness awaits, when we have enough money, when we meet the ideal partner, when everything goes according to plan. But living with quantum trust means seeing that everything is already unfolding perfectly in its own way. There's no need to chase anything ahead. Everything that is happening now, no matter how small or grand, is the full expression of ripening causes and conditions. The Buddha taught that liberation is not in the future, it is right here in this moment. We don't have to wait for some distant enlightenment to be at peace. If we can stop and look deeply, we can already touch stillness, completeness, and freedom now. Happiness is not the result of what we achieve, but the ability to be fully in touch with what is. being present is not always easy. The mind is habitually restless. But when we truly trust that everything is happening as it needs to, we no longer need to project ourselves forward. The mind finds rest, not because circumstances are perfect, but because there's no longer anything to resist or chase. In that stillness, the mind becomes clear and sharp. You begin to see each color, each sound, each movement of life with a clarity never felt before. And within that clarity, you realize something profound. Life doesn't have to get better for you to be at peace. It just needs you to be present. When you are present, the miracle doesn't lie in the world changing. It lies in the way you see it. Everything around you might remain the same, but your perception shifts. There's no more resistance, no more demands, no more running. Quantum trust is not believing in a perfect future. It is trusting that this reality, just as it is right. Not because it is always pleasant, but because it is necessary. Not because it matches your preferences, but because it has something to teach you. When your mind is nourished by presence, each step becomes grounded, each gesture meaningful. You don't do things just to get them done. You live through them. Whether washing dishes, eating, walking, or working, you can dwell in presence, because life can only be touched here and now. You begin to see that when you're no longer swept away by the future, you're also no longer bound by the past. You are free. You don't have to run anymore. You don't have to prove anything. From that place, fresh energy begins to rise. Energy rooted in real living, not unconscious reaction. The present moment is the only door to liberation. No one can step into the future or return to the past. There's only one place where you can truly live, right now. When you fully accept where you are, time seems to pause, space seems to open, and you begin to touch a kind of happiness that is not conditioned by any circumstance. This is the very liberation the Buddha pointed to, not something to wait for, not somewhere else to reach. It can arise right where you are, in the very moment you breathe in and realize that to be alive is already enough. Quantum trust, when seen deeply, is not about believing that something good will happen in the future. It is not a forward-looking hope, nor a comforting thought to reassure ourselves that everything will be okay. True trust is deeply tied to presence, a full return to the here and now, free from the pull of the past or the worry of the future. When you stop trying to control what will happen, when you let go of the need to know outcomes in advance, your mind begins to return to this very moment. And in that moment, a sacred door opens. The breath, the simplest of things, becomes an anchor for your return. Each inhalation is a new life. Each exhalation, a chance to let go. And when you are truly present with each breath, you see that nothing is lacking in this moment. There's nowhere to go, nothing to wait for, nothing to add or remove. The mind tends to project itself into the future, where it imagines happiness awaits, when we have enough money, when we meet the ideal partner, when everything goes according to plan. But living with quantum trust means seeing that everything is already unfolding perfectly in its own way. There's no need to chase anything ahead. Everything that is happening now, no matter how small or grand, is the full expression of ripening causes and conditions. The Buddha taught that liberation is not in the future, it is right here in this moment. We don't have to wait for some distant enlightenment to be at peace. If we can stop and look deeply, we can already touch stillness, completeness, and freedom now. Happiness is not the result of what we achieve, but the ability to be fully in touch with what is. Being present is not always easy. The mind is habitually restless. But when we truly trust that everything is happening as it needs to, we no longer need to project ourselves forward. The mind finds rest, not because circumstances are perfect, but because there's no longer anything to resist or chase. In that stillness, the mind becomes clear and sharp. You begin to see each color, each sound, each movement of life with a clarity never felt before. And within that clarity, you realize something profound. Life doesn't have to get better for you to be at peace. It just needs you to be present. When you are present, the miracle doesn't lie in the world changing. It lies in the way you see it. Everything around you might remain the same, but your perception shifts. There's no more resistance, no more demands, no more running. Quantum trust is not believing in a perfect future. It is trusting that this reality, just as it is right. Not because it is always pleasant, but because it is necessary. Not because it matches your preferences, but because it has something to teach you. When your mind is nourished by presence, each step becomes grounded, each gesture meaningful. You don't do things just to get them done. You live through them. Whether washing dishes, eating, walking, or working, you can dwell in presence, because life can only be touched here and now. You begin to see that when you're no longer swept away by the future, you're also no longer bound by the past. You are free. You don't have to run anymore. You don't have to prove anything. From that place, fresh energy begins to rise. Energy rooted in real living, not unconscious reaction. The present moment is the only door to liberation. No one can step into the future or return to the past. There's only one place where you can truly live, right now. When you fully accept where you are, time seems to pause, space seems to open, and you begin to touch a kind of happiness that is not conditioned by any circumstance. This is the very liberation the Buddha pointed to, not something to wait for, not somewhere else to reach. It can arise right where you are, in the very moment you breathe in and realize that to be alive is already enough. When a person truly lives in a state of wholehearted trust, not through theory, but through grounded presence, an open heart, and a mind at ease, they don't just transform themselves. That transformation ripples outward gently yet steadily, touching those around them without the need for explanation. Like a candle lit in the darkness, they don't shout or demand attention, they simply exist. And in that very presence, the light begins to spread. Someone living with authentic trust doesn't need to convince others to believe. They don't need to prove anything. They don't argue. The peace in their gaze, the calm in their voice, the compassion in their actions, all speak more powerfully than words. Others look at them and wonder, how can they be so at peace in such a turbulent world? When trust is lived fully, it becomes more contagious than any doctrine. It flows from within. A person who trusts deeply, who lets go, who listens, who flows with causes and conditions, creates a space of safety for others. Within that space, even those filled with doubt begin to feel heard, understood, and something within them begins to awaken. In Buddhism, this is called the Bodhisattva spirit, not only freeing oneself, but also opening the path for others to walk. One walks ahead, but not alone. They light the way, clear the stones, and quietly help others find their own steps. The beauty is, you don't need to do something grand to spread trust. You just need to live truthfully, peacefully, steadily, in the small things. When you speak to someone with full presence, you're helping them reconnect with their own presence. When you work with all your heart without clinging to results, you're sending a message. There is another way to live, lighter, deeper, and freer. From a single mindful individual, a new kind of community begins to form, not from external structure, but from inner resonance. Those who live with trust naturally draw together, support one another, and reflect light for one another. Each person is a spark, and when those sparks meet, a field of light emerges, the light of understanding, compassion, and liberation. In a world full of fear and doubt, one person who sustains deep trust becomes a silent mountain amid the storm. They do not live only for themselves. They become a refuge for others, not through power, not through lofty knowledge, but through a simple, profound, and honest way of being. The Buddha never founded a religion on blind faith. He taught, "Be a light unto yourself." But when someone has lit that inner lamp, their light can help others find their own flame. And once we are lit, we too become a lamp for those who come after. This is how trust spreads. No loud voices, no structures, just a life lived in alignment with what the heart has deeply realized. That truthfulness, that steadiness, is the quiet but powerful invitation for anyone still searching in the dark. One who trusts deeply and lives fully in the present is a living expression of the Dharma. They don't need to preach. How they live is the greatest teaching. And from just one such person, a new current can begin. The current of collective awakening, where trust is no longer something distant, but a living, breathing reality. The most mysterious thing about placing wholehearted trust in the quantum flow of life isn't the external miracles. It isn't about meeting the right person at the right time, or witnessing synchronicities, or feeling time stretch and intuition sharpen. These may be visible signs, but they're not the essence. The true miracle lies in the inner transformation, the way the mind becomes lighter, calmer, more grounded, and luminous. When the mind no longer clings, no longer demands, no longer tries to force things to go right, reality begins to unfold naturally. You no longer see yourself as the center that must control everything. Instead, you become a harmonious part of the larger movement. Like a leaf floating with the current, not resisting, not directing, but still holding its own form. In Buddhism, this is known as going along with causes and conditions without being moved. It means living in accordance with the flow of life while not losing awareness, not being swept away, but also not rigid, not forcing, but not giving up. You act, but you are not entangled. You live fully, but are not trapped by results. And in that freedom, life becomes a sacred unfolding. You no longer search for miracles in the future. You no longer need something big to feel joy. You begin to see the miracle is already here, in every breath, every step, every moment you release and live in trust. When you truly trust, you see that reality is not something to achieve or conquer. It is something to be touched. And touching it only happens when the mind is still enough, open enough, humble enough to not demand that reality be any different. A calm mind knows that everything is happening exactly as it needs to. Not because it's always pleasant, but because it's necessary. Joy comes to nourish. Pain comes to teach. Every moment, whether smooth or rough, brings a lesson for the growth of consciousness. And when you no longer try to rearrange everything, when you stop asking, "Why is it like this?" or "When will it change?" a miracle quietly unfolds. You begin to see beauty in what is. Beauty that doesn't come from perfection, but from presence. When you are present, everything becomes vibrant. You hear the wind as a song. You see a flower as a teaching. You sit alone and do not feel lonely because you are here. You've returned to life in its purest form. The real miracle is not what you can attain. It is whether you are truly living. Each time you release a fear, an expectation, a storyline, that is the miracle. It doesn't require flashing lights or dramatic change. Just one moment of clarity in your heart is enough. And if you can live in that state, even amid the noise, the chaos, the messiness, then you've touched the essence of the Dharma. That is freedom without escape, joy without condition, awareness that isn't limited by circumstance. The Buddha never promised a life without suffering. He simply showed how to live without losing ourselves in the midst of it. And when we can live like that, we become a doorway for others. No preaching, no shouting, just presence. Because the miracle isn't far away. It's here, in this moment, in this breath, in the quiet, unwavering trust that everything is happening just as it needs to. And we are here, alive, touching the most sacred thing of all, life itself.